Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you're getting ready to have another blessed week. Hope you had a great weekend, a blessed weekend. Hope you made the opportunity to worship the Lord. Anyhow, verse for us today, verse I want us to think about. It's actually in Deuteronomy. It's in chapter 8. It's in verse 2. The children of Israel are about to go into the promised land, and Moses is just kind of reminding them of some things. He's really trying to tell them to remember how God has worked in their lives, because you see, they're going to need the remembrance of the way that God has taken care of them in order to strengthen their faith for the things that they're going to go through as they go in and take this land. And so in chapter 8, verse 2, he tells them, he says, you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and to test you, to know what was in your heart and whether you would keep his commandments or not. So he said, all the things that God has brought you through, he's done it for one thing, or for several reasons. One is he wanted you to come to a realization of how much you need him. In other words, he humbled you. He wanted to bring out the faith that was in your heart. Now, God knows he doesn't need to test you for his sake, but he needs to test you for your sake. He needs you to show yourself about your faith and about your strength and the strength of your faith. And you need to come to the realization yourself about what's in your heart and whether or not you are truly going to follow God. So he did all these things so that he was telling them to remember all these things so that they would know, so that they could find strength for the future. So I was just thinking about that, and there's some things we can do in our lives. One of them, and it's not really, it doesn't sound like a very manly thing to do, I'll be real honest with you, but I've gone through periods where I've done it and doing it in some form now, but it's kind of like, it's like journaling. Just write down periodically. You don't have to do it every day. You don't have to do it every week, but just in the season of your life, just write down when God does something in your life. Just write it down. Write it down. It'll help you to remember it. Write it down. You can go back to it in rainy seasons or in difficult seasons of your life, and you can be reminded of how God has worked in your life. We need to remember the ways that God has worked. You can just do it as a prayer list. Literally write down the things that you're praying for. And this does a couple things. When you're praying, you can look at your list and, oh yeah, I need to pray for this, or I need to pray for that. And you're not just kind of stumbling around. But really what it does is you can look down that list and you go, you know what, God's really already answered that prayer. And you can mark it in some way. You can remind yourself of the way that God answers your prayer. Another thing that you can do is when you're going through something or walking through something, God will oftentimes give you a verse, and that verse is just very meaningful to you in some way, shape, form, fashion. Maybe you heard it in a sermon, maybe you read it in a book, maybe you had it in a daily devotional, maybe you just came across it in your reading of the Word, but that verse was very important to you, and God used it in a special way in your life. You know what? Just memorize that verse. Just memorize it. Just quote it to yourself over and over for days, and just keep bringing it up in your heart and in your mind, and that verse will become a source of strength for you. The bottom line today is I want you to find a way to make sure that you remember how God works in your life, because remembering how God has worked in your life in the past will give you strength and will strengthen your faith for the future, and it will give you hope, and it will give you the perseverance to continue to move on as God takes you into new places in this life. So do that this week. Start remembering some of the things that God has done in your life in the past. And not only will you become a grateful person, but you'll realize how much God is really with you and really walking with you. Hope you guys have a great week, and get out there in faith today. God bless you. Love you. Bye.